Okay, just introduce myself. You probably wonder what an architect is doing. So architect in our industry means somebody who has technical knowledge, but it's also bridged with the business team, with the business users. So I work with developers and also with business users to come with the best solution that fits to our overall architectural IT strategy. It's very easy in our organization to come up with short-term solutions, and the architect's principal role is to make sure that any solution that we choose or build has some longevity and or carry on being used long after a project is finished. So, yeah, it works, right? So, this sort of broad agenda is primarily our experience. So, this is how we found using Laserfiche, adopting Laserfiche into our IT organization. I'm going to talk about who we are. We're a London group. I don't pretend that we don't pretend to be an international organization. So I'm sure many of you have not heard of us. So what we do, what we are capable of doing in terms of IT, what our problem was that triggered our engagement with Laserfiche, how we chose Laserfiche, and talk about the aspects of our design, how we use Laserfiche, and then some results and take-homes. Okay, so Royal London is the largest mutual life and pensions company in the UK, depending on how you measure it, but yeah, we are the largest. There's not many mutual companies, life and pensions company in the UK. A lot of them have floated on the stock market. We're one of the last ones still considered mutual. Mutual means, next slide, we're not owned by we're owned by policyholders, not by shareholders, so we have a lot more we believe we're a lot more independent in choosing our destiny. So we don't have such short-term thinking in what we decide how we're going to see ourselves in a few years' time. We're the largest in terms of £82.3 billion of funds, which I think that's over $100 billion. Not all of it I have access to, so a tiny little fraction of that is available to us. Number of people we have to serve is about 5.3 million policyholders, mostly in the UK. And in terms of the company size, I think we're over 3,000 now. These figures were in December 2014. So I think we've grown to over 3,000 now. This has a logo, and 1861 refers to when this company was founded by a few gentlemen hanging out in what was the equivalent of Starbucks, I guess, and deciding to start a company. And I think literally that is true. They started in a coffee company, in a coffee shop. And so, yeah, we're 150 years of history, which is not just bragging, okay, because we are holding, I'll tell you about our business unit and the reason why that's our relevance. And because we work in financial services, we have a lot of governmental bodies who look over our shoulders to make sure we are behaving well and not going to bring down the economy. So our business units, intermediary protection, they're just words at the moment, but just basically these are our business units. Pensions probably means something to you, so everybody has a pension here, and hopefully we live long and prosperous life. So that means if you have a pension with us, you expect Royal London to be around when you actually need it. So having a 150-year history kind of gives a little bit of a credibility that we're still going to be around in another 150 years' time when you actually may need to call upon us for your pensions. And we want hands-on investments. The business unit I'm going to concentrate on is the intermediary protection, which is another buzzword. Intermediary in our business means that you don't buy directly from us. You buy via an IFA, an independent financial advisor. So you buy policies through an IFA, and typically that'll be when you take out a mortgage for a house. So your mortgage provider will say, we tell you that we're going to provide you a mortgage, but you better have some life insurance to cover any eventualities. Please buy a life insurance policy. So that's when the IFA will contact us to buy a policy on behalf of the customer. Okay, protection is just another buzzword. It just means life insurance. We currently have 350,000 life policies and around 250 agents in our contact center. To give you an idea of scale. We have an IT. We're not totally outsourced all our IT capability. We have quite strong IT infrastructure capabilities. We're not adverse to outsourcing our IT. Just at the moment, we have a quite strong internal IT capability. We've got two data centers in Edinburgh and Manchester. That's one in Edinburgh. That's Manchester. We don't all go marathon running. It's just something that I'm personally interested in. So the idea is that if anything happens to Edinburgh, we can always flip over to Manchester, and we have coverage there, and there shouldn't be any massive interruptions to business. A lot of it is private cloud, so we have virtual machines running, and we can spin them up very quickly, so we don't have to install Windows from scratch or install hardware. It's all virtualized. And this long list of environments is not uncommon in our industry. We don't basically make changes directly into production. We test the bejesus out of them, to be honest. Anything changes that we make, we start in development, and then we go through a whole bunch of different cycles before it gets released into production. So that just gives you an idea that when we make changes, we have to follow a very strict process and number of steps before they're allowed into production. So that's our infrastructure. What we're capable of doing in terms of our staff is that we got admin staff. We also got a strong development team, versed in C#, Java, SQL, and we integrated with a boatload of third-party systems. And I guess it's kind of a bragging that we've been around long enough to have a good reputation for delivering projects on time and doing what we were asked to do to deliver. And we're quite heavily into agile for our development. So there's a section on the roll-on solution. I'm going to break it down into these kind of sub problems. First of all, what the problem is as we see it, how we selected it, and so on. Okay, so problem statement. This nicely colored box here is a Sun V480R bought about 10 years ago. I think you can still find them on eBay, but basically, this is basically our problem. We're running a 10-year-old tower system for our document repository. It wasn't on the latest software version for various contractual reasons, and we were getting business impacts outages in terms of people were hoping to retrieve a document and they couldn't retrieve it because a certain software component had to be restarted, which is a hassle. You don't want people phoning up to say, I can't retrieve this document, and you have to, just wait a minute, I'll just restart this guy. So that was and if this thing dies and an equivalent machine is not available on eBay at a short notice, then we may have a more serious problem. So we had to get out of this system as soon as possible, and there were, we looked at a bunch of alternatives. Another requirement that came out of that was that we kind of conservative. It shouldn't be obvious to users that a migration has occurred, and it certainly shouldn't be business impacting. We don't want people to wait a couple of months while we migrate all these records from Tower to Laserfiche. So hopefully people shouldn't be affected. And again, we like to keep life simple. We don't, if Tower talks to a bunch of components, a bunch of systems, we don't want to have to change that. Yeah, right. Another consideration is security and access to documents has become a lot more important in our industry, and data protection, maybe it's legislation or whatever, but being allowed to only see the documents you're supposed to see has become quite important. And so being able to restrict who can see what documents was a requirement that we want to introduce that was not available in Tower, and also to audit who has been looking at documents, especially if somebody has systematically tried to look at documents they're not supposed to look at. We certainly want to audit that. So all good stuff. Selection, I won't go into this detail. It's quite kind of techy, but it's mostly kind of one of the reasons why we went with the criterion for deciding which vendor to go for, which included upgrading to the latest version of Tower, just how it all worked out. And I guess the bottom two are probably the most pertinent, really. In terms of licensing, Laserfiche was highly favorable, and the reputation of the company was well rated by Gartner, and they provided an excellent reference site, the UK Health Service. We had help from our value-added reseller, Fortress, based in the UK. Yeah, based in the UK, and they impressed us with having a proven track record. They worked with the National Health Service, which is, I can't even imagine that. I mean, that serves every single person in the United Kingdom, over 50 million people. So when they say large, I'm sure that's you can put as many superlatives as you like, but it will be extremely large undertaking to deal with data. And of course, it's medical data, so by definition, it'll be extremely sensitive, so it's a very close fit to what we do. Right, so proof of concept. So we didn't just jump straight in. We had a proof of concept with Fortress to make sure that the product we chose can do what we think wanted to do. So demonstrated scanning, integration with our architecture. We did some data migration, some toy examples, and to try and project how long it would take. So given our experiments, we reckon it would take about 60 days to migrate the data, which fitted in with our scope of what a project was. It was 600 days, then I think our stakeholders would start getting nervous. But 60 days, yeah, that's a reasonable size for a project in our company. So the migration itself was in 2 phases, the main import and a top-up. So the main import, we just took a snapshot of all the documents and then imported them into Laserfiche while everybody carried on using Tower. And then during the weekend, we kind of caught up with all the extra documents that were put in since the snapshot was taken. So this allowed us to do the 60 days without interrupting business, essentially. So we found out that it actually took about 36 days rather than 60 days. It's not a bad project. So our proof of concept wasn't too far off, really, in the grand scheme of things. And we found it was primarily limited by how fast the little disk was spinning than anything else. So in the end, we managed to migrate 14 million odd documents into Tower with no problem at all. Okay, so everything in our company, everything talks to everything else. So in terms of inbound, these are things that will be ingested into Laserfiche. There's a number of endpoints. Shared folders. We've got a bunch of back-end systems that generate PDFs, and these get put into shared folders, and they get put into it. One of our business partners send us RAR files containing morph PDFs. We've got the right fax still comes into us, and we have paper documents scanned in. So these are the 4 biggies of where documents can arrive into our company. So the first one is one of our business partner. One of the business partner. No, that's the wrong one. Yeah, no. Okay, so this is these two are processed by the same thing. So we wrote our own import agent thanks to Laserfiche SDK. So there is a out-of-the-box Laserfiche import agent. For what we wanted to do, it couldn't handle RAR files, so we had to write our own to unpack these RAR files. RAR is like zip. So unzip these files, extract as PDFs individually. So that's why we had to write our own. But in the end, it means that we didn't have to engage in this business partner to tell them to change their file format. We didn't have to phone them up at all. They're totally unaware that we changed how we process their RAR files. So it's great. We didn't have to talk to them. So we've got write fax for inbound faxes. Before, it was kind of painful, but we managed to get write fax to put it into another import folder, wrote another custom import agent to handle these faxes coming in. And because you can't really do much in terms of metadata with faxes, the most we could do is if you send it using this fax number, it will go to this folder. If it's sent using another fax number, it's sent to a different folder. So that's pretty much, you're more limited in the metadata you can extract from a fax at this stage. So people still send in lots of paper documents. And we tend to put them all in one giant pile, give it to a scanning team who would then feed into Hopper and press a button and hope things go smoothly from then on. We chose a Laserfiche Fit client connected to a scanner. We used cover sheets to separate out each of these documents. So So Laserfiche will know where a document starts and how many pages it has, and then where it ends. And we configured it so that it went straight to the repository so that no images are stored in the scan team's PC, which is, I'm not sure, well, it was considered a big deal at the time. I'm not sure what these scanners are really going to do with images, but some of these scanned images can be medical sensitive information as well. So going out the way from Laserfiche, once you put things into Laserfiche, there's not a lot of use unless you can actually get things out of it. The things we're interested in, what Laserfiche should do outbound, is tell Microsoft CRM when a document's arrived. So we have an integration point existing that when a document arrives in Tower, it wants to tell CRM that I've got a document, please index it in CRM. We want to reuse the existing interface. Dynamics also has a URL to retrieve the document. Again, we want to reuse that. And we have a web applications and other backend systems that also want to retrieve the documents. So in terms of notifying CRM, we use Laserfiche workflow to trigger an XML. We put into a Microsoft messaging queue, which is cheaper than WebSphere, which is a side effect. We use REST services invoked from Laserfiche workflow. We found that the Laserfiche workflow has very good support for REST. REST is kind of a web protocol, and yeah, it was really easy from workflow to call our C# code, which then does the actual work of putting a message onto the queue. The URLs, these URLs, because they were imported from Tower, refer to a Tower box that no longer exists. So we had to write a kind of a facade to pretend to be Tower to Dynamics, but in the actual case, we're actually talking to Laserfiche. And again, we could do that because it was Laserfiche SDK, and it can handle different file types. You can enforce security models, and yeah, there's no change to any of our backend systems. You could, all our backend systems, or as far as CRM is concerned, we're still using Tower, but just that Tower no longer exists. It's actually Laserfiche because we're able to use the SDK to emulate all that. Okay, another requirement was that we had another business unit come in to say, oh, wow, you guys are using Laserfiche. That sounds interesting. What are you doing with it? So this is a new business unit that was quite recently started. That's very similar need as the Intermediary business unit. They want to store PDFs, and they want to use the same scanning team as us. And they also want their own data repository. They don't want to see our documents, and we don't want to see their documents. And they're different in that they're a new business unit, so they have no legacy investment in Tower. So they don't have to worry about migration. So this kind of picture just shows that we've got a common scanning team. It goes into what's called a post-room repository, and log. This little workflow here will decide whether to forward it onto the consumer repository or onto the intermediary protection repository. So that's really all it is. It's just a single repository where all the scanned documents can all flow in. Now, to distinguish which business unit a document is meant to go to, we use cover sheets. So there's a barcode and a cover sheet to say this is for intermediary or this is for consumer. Our documents have barcodes on them. So a lot of our documents have barcodes which have metadata that we want to extract. And we also wanted to look into using OCR to help improve our process, because we don't want, if there's no barcodes on it, sometimes we want to do something more clever, and I'll mention that later. So this is again back to barcode. So essentially, we've got a bunch of documents for intermediary, a bunch of documents for consumer, and another bunch of documents for intermediary. We'll put a cover sheet on top of them, we'll stack them together, put them onto the hopper, press the button, and then it will put them into the right repository for intermediary and consumer, nicely separated. So that was fairly easy. I don't think there was any problem with that. We use QuickFills for that. So our documents have barcodes, and I think this is the deliberately wonky version, looking as horrible as we can manage to make it. So these barcodes will have important information on them, like what kind of document this is, an ID for identifying the client and an ID for identifying the policy. And yeah, quick fields, read those barcodes fine, wasn't a problem. So this is a bit more tricky. So this is, for certain documents, there are some special considerations that are needed. These are called access to medical reports, AMRA documents, and they are the kind of little forms to tell the GP, your doctor, your practitioner, that you have given consent for the doctor to tell us about your medical details, right? So these forms, a bit of legal requirement that has to be sent around to doctors to say that, yeah, please send us your client's medical details, and they had to be recognized in a certain way. And we use OCR to recognize for words like Access to Medical Reports Act, and just OCR to identify these documents and treat them in a special way. So I'm not going to read through this, you'll be pleased to know. But the Laserfiche system is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, mostly automated. The previous one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. A lot of it is quite manual, including taking out AMRA forms and rescanning it in. So this was a massive improvement in terms of handling these AMRA forms that OCR was able to do. Okay, so this is the overall architecture. I'm not going to talk about the consumer one, just going to talk about the intermediary one. So this to kind of liven it up a bit, I'm going to do time 25, is that I'm going to drive them by use cases. So this is the first one. So we have some back-end system that creates a PDF. It goes into our import agent. It goes to this, because it's created by back-end systems, all the index information is already there because we generated it, right? So we stick in some index information along with our PDF. So it gets put in there, and it just goes straight into this workflow where it will send an XML message to CRM to say, this document's arrived, indexed to Joe Blogs with this policy 123, and it will be, a record will be created in CRM to say that document has been created. That's easy. A little bit more complicated is a fax comes in. A fax won't have much in the way of indexing information because it's just a fax. So it goes into a folder. Quick fields will try to see if there's any barcodes in there. So we may be lucky. The fax has a barcode. Hey, we've got some metadata we can pull out. If it doesn't, we have to manually index it. The AMRA quick fields will see if there's any AMRAs lurking in there that we need special treatment. And so once it's gone through these two ones, it'll go again into this folder where, if it's not been indexed in a machine way, will be manually indexed through Laserfiche client. And again, once it gets into that folder, is the same workflow gets triggered and send a message over to CRM saying, a fax has arrived, please index this in CRM. Okay, this one is where our business partner has sent us an archive file containing lots of XMLs in them. Again, our custom service will unpack all that and send each one. And again, we'll be lucky because it's generated by their backend systems. There should be indexing information in there, so we don't need to go through these two guys, and they'll go straight into our notification. And this will fire a series of messages for each each PDF that's embedded inside the archive file. This is the last and most complicated one. Scanning. Yeah, scanning is always complicated. And so the scanner goes in to the post room. There's some cover sheets. So quick fields will decide based on the cover sheets whether it's for consumer or for protection. If it's for protection, again, it goes same process. Quick fields will try to extract any barcodes hiding in the documents for indexing. AMRA quick fields will see if there's any AMRA documents that need special treatment, and then again goes to there. So yeah, we are reusing a heck of a lot. So it's a kind of nice design that we don't want to have too complicated a flow. Right. What do we get out of it? Main one is that as a solution, it's a lot cheaper. I mean, I don't have the figures off my head, but Solaris equipment from 10 years ago is not cheap or simple to maintain, and we're now standardized on Windows everywhere, pretty much. So Laserfiche being able to be fitted well into our existing IT infrastructures made things a lot cheaper to maintain. We got designed that because of the post room shown earlier, we can plug in more business units, all using the one scan team as they arrive, and we already looking into that in all seriousness for a couple of our business units, asset management and the pensions. So they're looking into using Laserfiche, and we in the process of advising them on how to extend our existing architecture to use that. Laserfiche allow you to separate your repository by business units so people don't see each other's data, which to us is a good thing. Maybe it's not good, maybe it's something that you do want, but for us, we don't want that. So having nice clear separation by repositories is a fantastic thing. I don't think Tau could do that. I think, Tau, you have to create another Tau instance to handle another business unit. But for Laserfiche, you just need to create another directory. Very simple. So the documents that are eventually stored, they're just stuck in a Windows format. And so I'm not making threats here, but if we want to move away from Laserfiche in some time in the future, we're not going to be losing sleep over having to unlock this data that's in some kind of strange proprietary format. So Tau stored it in a proprietary format, and fortunately we managed to get it out, but in Laserfiche case, it's stored in a very open Windows-like format. So we want to move away to another product in the future. We don't feel we're locked in. So in the future, migration will be a lot easier. For our business unit, it's painless. So can't underestimate the significance of that. Nobody really complained that what on earth has happened. Nobody realized anything's happened. They just carried on as usual and retrieved the documents. They might see a Laserfiche client being started rather than a Tower client being started, but that's kind of small detail. It's more reliable than Tower. We don't have to explain to people why we're restarting things. Given the volumes, we haven't seen any performance issues, and the security model is a good thing. So that's the one where it wasn't painful. Where it wasn't painless was that people were starting to complaining they couldn't see documents, and they said, "Well, you weren't supposed to see them actually in the first place." So it's actually a good thing. So, and the final one is that the pulling out these AMRA forms was a significant benefit. To give you, I'll probably dwell on it a little bit, that in life insurance, getting medical details for underwriting is always the most painful step. So it would take typically about 30 days to process a document if you need to ask a doctor for the guy's medical details. If the person is young, fit, and healthy, you don't need to talk to the doctor, then it can flow in about 10 minutes, okay, because it's all automated. So it's all automated. You don't need to ring anybody up. It takes 10 minutes. If the person is any way complicated, has any kind of declarations of health, then you need to speak to their doctor, and that involves AMRA forms, and that can then blow up to about 30 days. So anything that gets us away from 30 days to 10 minutes, is a good thing, and allows us to process documents a lot faster. So in conclusion, doing the migration and a proof of concept was a good thing because it kind of gave us an upper bound on how long the project would take. So we knew we got a lot of documents, and if it took 6 years to migrate, then we may have an issue. Probably will have an issue. So because we projected to take about 60 days, our project manager can put that into Microsoft Project and plan around that, and it also helped to validate the choice of the product. The Laserfiche SDK, I can't stress that well enough. It's just refreshing for a vendor to have an SDK. I mean, not all vendors have SDK, so it's good that this product has something that allows us to program it to do what we want within our infrastructure. And it means that we don't have to change our endpoints, our points to the old Tau system. Everything can be emulated using Laserfiche. Again, Laserfiche can call REST services out of the box, which is for us again helps us to leverage our IT capabilities because we've got people who can write REST services for doing some of the more complicated logic that can't be done by workflow. So we've got people who can write C# code to do that. And Quickfield's OCR, we don't I don't feel we've kind of scratched the surface of it in terms of looking for AMRA forms. So we will want to use that more now to see if there's any other documents that we can identify for special treatment to help our process go faster. So so kind of, AMRA was a quick and easy things that we could do, but I'm sure there are other things we could do for other documents. Well, that's it. Okay. 35 minutes. I think I shaved too many slides off now.
Yeah.
Right, sorry about that. It was meant to be 40. It started off being about an hour, this talk, and then Katrina gave me a hard time, so I shaved a few slides.
I did not say such things. We'll open up the floor for questions now. Sorry, what?
Yeah, she wanted to
Sorry,
get.
Stephanie, I want to get you on the mic so everyone can hear.
Do you OCR as you import your data, or do you OCR afterwards?
Right, so I think we OCR, as in the post room we OCR at that point. So I think that's what you mean by OCR. We do the thing we're interested in is the barcode, looking for the barcode, which is kind of just barcode reading. And we look for AMRAs, which is zonal OCR. So those are done in those after you read it in. So we do have a step in the post room where we do a full page scan, and that is we investigating whether we need to do that now. I think at the time we thought that it'd be great for everybody to do a text search across a repository, but we need to. It's taken a long time, basically. It's consuming a lot of resources, so we are investigating whether that is still a business requirement. So the answer is yes, we do it, but we're not sure we want to do it. we just want to, or we just want to. Yeah, it's a nice thing to have, but it is quite an expensive operation.
Thanks. The question is on your import or the integration with Microsoft Dynamics CRM and using your REST web services.
Yes.
Is REST one of your internal acronyms?
Yes. No, it's that's a good one. What does it stand for? It's like SOAP. You heard of SOAP?
Yes.
Yeah, REST is kind of is a lighter way of doing web service calls. Just really put on the spot. The REST is actually an industry acronym.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is, but it's like it's basically like when you do a fetch an image from a web browser like HTTP GET. It's a bit built on that, and it's rather than a big, massive XML message with all your gubbins and there is a very lightweight. And I think Laserfiche just chose to use REST as being their REST protocol as being their way of integrating to other back-end system and not SOAP. So that's why we went with REST, and REST is fine. We're happy with REST.
And a follow-up question on that is, so you're sending a message through Microsoft Message Queue to CRM.
Yes.
And were you putting in a web access or web link URL into CRM? Right.
Okay. So we give to CRM the document ID, the Laserfiche document ID, and then CRM will build up the URL to retrieve that document. So we'll pass that document ID to our retrieval service. Okay, which then does the actual retrieval of the document. So there's a link there, which you press on it, and it just calls our web service, and it will know the Laserfiche document ID and uses the SDK to pull the document out from the repository. Does that answer your question? It doesn't quite construct a URL, but it's...
Okay, so within your CRM system, you do have a page or somewhere in one of the contact areas to hit a link.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe we have an answer for what REST stands for. Would you like to share?
Sure. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. This means that each unique URL is a representation of some object. You can get the contents of that object using an HTTP GET to delete it. You then might use a post, put, or delete to modify the object.
Thank you, sir.
Why didn't I remember that?
Oh, shoot, sorry. Any further questions?
The gentleman over there.
I was wondering why, one of your slides talked about how you were importing all the documents and you were importing them into PDF. What's your business process of determining that rather than importing in the native Laserfiche format, which gives you access to more of the tools in the client?
Right. Okay. So basically, we don't want to change. We're lazy. We don't want to change what's already out there, what we're already using. So, say our third party who send us a zip file containing a lot of PDFs, we don't want to have to pick up the phone and incur a big IT change budget to get them to change what they're doing. So they don't want to send us PDFs. So essentially, we're happy for them to keep on sending us PDFs. We have back-end systems that generate PDFs, and using another product, I think I mentioned a company called Thunderhead, which produce beautifully rendered PDFs. And so, I guess that's on one level, I'm being flippant, but we don't want to change as much as we have to. But if there are better ideas to use different formats. Eventually, as you say, it's supposed to go into Laserfiche eventually. Maybe a better format should be investigated. Then we'll look at it. I'll take that on board. But for now, the immediate priority was to get off tower as quickly as possible because people are complaining and change little as you can get away with.
So my question is more of how long did it take you to do the project?
Okay, so
how many resources, and then another one, how many resources, and then kind of what were their skill sets?
Right. The project was fairly small. I think it was a team of about 20 odd people. I think the project was probably best part of it. About 6 months. 6 months is about right. It got a bit. I'm kind of pausing a little bit because we had to. This new business unit was running at the same time. This consumers, so that I don't have figures for them on how long they take. So we had to make sure we weren't treading each other's toes and we were doing the same thing. So I can't speak on their behalf. For Intermediary, it took about half a year. And 20 odd people, skill sets, bunch of testers. So a lot, and they were thinking of an army of testers before. My goodness, do we have to make sure every 14 million documents has been successfully imported into Laserfiche? So no, you don't have to test every 14 million one of them. We can probably just do a sensible sampling. So they were a bit worried about that. So didn't have to have too many testers. And it won't. Some developers, some C# developers, because the integration to, especially CRM, was involved putting XML messages into a queue, and we didn't have, and that's not something that Laserfiche does out of the box. That's something you have to write. So some C# developers. I think that's probably it. Yeah, that's a typical size developers and testers. A lot of admin staff, DBAs, database administrators. Some business requirement was not were there. Yeah, the business requirements, but because it was a kind of a unplug something and plug something that does exactly the same as before as much as we can. Didn't have to be too creative in the business requirements. So I think that's probably it. And so usual mixture of business analysts, developers, testers. I'm sure there's a project manager in there. Okay.
Well, you migrate a lot of documents. How was the repository design? I mean, how you put any metadata or templates, or how you identify each document?
Yeah, so, okay, we could have just had a flat structure. So we used folders in different ways. One depending on what workflow wants to move on to. So there'll be various stages of a document. One stage would be it has no metadata, so it's as little as possible, very little metadata. So that's in a kind of parking area. That's one repository structure. Then as you add more stuff into it, workflow would put into another directory where it has more metadata and carry on. And we also, because of the security thing, we put documents by document categories. I think you might call it document classes. But so it was underwriting medical document, it'll be in one folder. If it's general inquiry, it'll be in a different folder. And so we have a folder structure that reflects the kind of documents we have. Right? So that's another design that we did. I haven't fleshed it and haven't described it here, but so we have once we got into the live repository, there's quite a lot of subdirectories that reflect what kind of documents we have. So what's the other question about metadata? You did have some...
Do you use any templates to
assign
these to these documents?
No, think so, no. I think we just use metadata. I think we just use we just stick metadata onto them. Use that. Oh, you probably got to answer that.
I was just going to add to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry.
Fortress. Does it work?
Can you pick this up?
I don't know. Just don't drop it. I think it's a waste of it's just a waste of time. Yeah.
Right. So I work with Roy London as the technical lead from Fortress. So they had a template with fields. So, sorry, is it fine now? So they had a template definitely with some fields, and the way as Juan already described was they had different steps. Like when the document comes in, it goes into one folder, scan folder. If there is any manual indexing required, manual stop will do the indexing. They will trigger. So they will do some change that triggers a workflow. Workflow moves the document into, it does the validation checks for the fields. If the required fields are there, if they are there, then on the basis of those fields, it builds the folder structure, like the document category and then the document type. And so in that way, it was quite easy to set up the access rights. So on the basis of groups, that only a specific group can access the specific folder. So yeah, all the folder structure were built on the basis of the fields data. If that answers your question, yeah.
So we do template. Just use one template.
So Hon showed you the diagram. So they have got two businesses, consumer and bright gray. So. Yeah, so them both were using the post from repository as the first repository. So when the document goes in, so it has got cover sheets, right? So those cover sheets says which business unit it belongs to. Then the bright gray, one of the name of the business, and consumer other business. Then document moves into the individual businesses. Now the Royal London has got their third business, which is nearly done with the Laserfiche implementation as well, and they are importing around 10 million documents. So that's a third unit of Royal London. So we are nearly done with their development. So they will be going live somewhere early this year. So once the document goes into the first repository on the basis of the cover sheet, it explains that which business unit it belongs to. It goes to the specific repository. Then there are different workflows, individual workflows, and quick fill sessions set up over there. And they don't do any OCRing in the start, and you understand is because that puts a lot of burden if you do OCRing on the scanning stage. So what they do is in their quick fields, they do all the OCRing, then they do the pattern matching, pick up the required data, and then at the end, on the basis of that data, it goes through the workflow and goes to the end of the where it's supposed to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Zane. Okay.
It's kind of related to what you've been talking about. It sounds like you're not really using Laserfiche too much for searching, because you're just providing the document ID to CRM.
Yeah.
So mainly when somebody is retrieving a document, they're looking in CRM,
yes,
and you're just retrieving it from Laserfiche by document ID.
Yes.
You're not looking for the policy number field or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, say we very strict about any inbound, outbound correspondence to anybody are indexed in CRM. So every phone, that includes phone calls. Every phone call, every fax, every email is all indexed in CRM. So CRM should be our total contact history with no exception. So the use case you're bringing up, well, supposing somebody rings up, I'm called John, and I need to search for all Johns inside Laserfiche. That I would say that may happen, but it shouldn't happen because they should have everything inside CRM to look for it. And so I guess you may have a case where I sent you a letter 5 years ago, and you have to dig that up. Even then, the first port of call probably will be people using CRM to find it there. And then maybe if you can't find a CRM, then you may have to look into Laserfiche. But it's at the moment, I think they are used to finding everything in CRM, and if it's not in CRM, then it's not indexed in CRM, then we have a problem. we have a defect. So
if you got the Laserfiche search engine to work reasonably well with 14 million documents, I would like to know how you did that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're just providing the document ID to Laserfiche, then there's no real search engine going on there.
I agree,
Yeah, so the way it was then when they imported 14 million documents, right? So at that point, when the documents, they wrote their own import service. The reason we were not able to use the import agent was because at that point, sorry. So for migration point, they use the import agent. Documents comes into the repository. They had their workflow set up. Workflow picks up the document. The document names were unique. They had some information. Using that information, they were doing search into the SQL, which had all the data. Read all the data, assign it to the document to the field values, right? Send the document to the destination. The second workflow triggers in, which calls the REST web service. It creates a URL because in your workflow you can use tokens to get the repository name, server, and everything. So it creates a URL. It sends a URL to the CRM system, which includes the document ID as well. So when a user is in the CRM, they have got the URL in front of them for each document. They click on the URL. It calls the web service. It calls the web access, and web access shows you the document in front of you.
But what you're providing the web access is the document ID.
Yeah.
So you're not making Laserfiche actually do the searching for you.
No, because that would kill the system.
Okay.
You can't do the 14 million documents. So you hit the document straight away. So it makes it really quick, actually. So you just really click on the link, and it brings the document in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
A follow-up question to the last item was, if somebody does have to do a search for a document in the Laserfiche client, you don't have them do it by folder, because even one of your folders may have tens of thousands of documents in one folder. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm not sure how many folders we have, and I'm guessing about 100.
There were 170, I think.
Yeah,
all their doc categories, I think.
Yeah, but I don't know what's the distribution. Is it quite peaky? Is there one folder has gazillions of them, another have one or two? So I'm not quite sure about the distribution. But yeah,
Right. So if you accidentally clicked on one folder that had 1 million documents, you'd kill the client.
But you have got the metadata in there, which you can do the search.
So you do a search by metadata or by doc ID instead.
Yeah. If required, then you can definitely do the search in the metadata. Then
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
If you OCR'd the documents and you made your search specific enough, could you not retrieve them that way?
So this is about where we do full text search, full text OCR, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this things, I was saying, I'm not sure that's something we want to
do
in the future.
Actually, it wasn't their requirement to do a full text search, so that's why we never did the full OCR. There wasn't requirement. There's no reason of putting extra burden on the system. Definitely, so that was the purpose. But they do the OCR in their quick fill sessions, because at that point they had to extract the data, then do the pattern matchings. So at that point they do the OCR, but that's related to the quick fill session only. That doesn't put burden on the repository. So
yeah. So
I just want to add something here. I think the conversation is around whether you should provide specific links to each document when you're talking about 14 million documents, or whether you use metadata to do a search in Laserfiche. Right? So it depends on the requirement precisely. Royal London had that requirement of having specific links for each document, but we know that other implementations of Laserfiche, you could use a web access search URL, pass a couple of metadata in the URL itself, and it will pull up all documents together at once. So, of course, I mean, if you're talking about like 20 documents and you don't want to have 20 specific links, whether in CRM or any other application, you could make use of web access search URL. So it doesn't really have to be a text search, so you don't need to perform a full OCR, but metadata itself can be used for performing search into Laserfiche and pull back the search result into any embedded UI, like a web access UI.
All right. Well, I'm sure Han and Uzair will be around for further questions. So everyone, can you guys, let's help thank Han again.
Okay.